"Papa, I can't see anything," screamed the rancher's blind daughter as thunder crashed overhead, while downstairs the wealthy cattle baron raged at another failed doctor who'd traveled from the east only to declare her condition hopeless. The trembling girl had never seen sunlight, her father's face, or hope itself, condemned by townsfolk to eternal darkness despite all her father's riches. But ascending the creaking stairs with worn leather satchel in hand, the quiet black maid carried ancestral secrets that defied everything the white world believed possible. Her weathered hands held power that could either restore the child's sight and transform their lives forever, or destroy them both when the truth inevitably surfaced. Would ancient wisdom triumph where modern medicine failed, or would prejudice blind everyone to a miracle unfolding before their very eyes? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The thunderstorm rattled the windows of the Thatcher Ranch as 8-year-old Emmy sat alone in her bedroom, surrounded by expensive furniture she had never seen. Lightning illuminated the vast Texas plains outside, but for Emmy, the world remained pitch black as it had since birth. Downstairs, her father, Jacob Thatcher, paced the mahogany floors of his study. His boots clicked against the wood with each frustrated step. Dr. Edmund Hayes, the most expensive specialist money could buy from Boston, stood near the fireplace with his medical bag. "There is absolutely nothing more I can do," Dr. Hayes declared, adjusting his spectacles. "The child's condition is permanent. No amount of money will change that reality." Jacob's face flushed red. His calloused hands clenched into fists. He had built the largest cattle empire in 3 counties from nothing. His ranch stretched for miles in every direction. Yet all his wealth meant nothing when it came to his daughter's blindness. "You're the 5th doctor to tell me that," Jacob growled. "I'm paying you a fortune." Dr. Hayes packed his instruments with clinical precision. "Some things cannot be purchased, Mr. Thatcher. Your daughter will never see." The doctor's carriage disappeared into the storm, leaving Jacob alone with his rage. Outside, ranch hands whispered among themselves about the cursed Thatcher girl. The townspeople had long ago decided that Emmy was doomed to a life of darkness and dependency. 3 days later, Maggie Green arrived at the ranch. She stepped down from the supply wagon with nothing but a worn carpet bag and a leather satchel that had belonged to her grandmother. Her dark skin glistened with perspiration from the Texas heat. At 52, she carried herself with quiet dignity, despite the suspicious stares from the other workers. Jacob met her on the front porch. His cold eyes looked her up and down with barely concealed skepticism. "You're here to keep house and nothing more," he stated firmly. "Stay away from my daughter. I don't want you filling her head with your folk remedies or superstitions." Maggie nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir. I understand." But understanding and agreeing were different things entirely. Maggie had traveled from Louisiana carrying knowledge passed down through 5 generations of healers. Her grandmother had been legendary in the bayous for curing ailments that baffled trained doctors. The other servants treated Maggie with polite distance. They had learned not to get too close to anyone Jacob might fire on a whim. The cook, Mrs. Patterson, showed Maggie to the small room behind the kitchen where she would sleep. "Best keep your head down," Mrs. Patterson warned. "Mr. Thatcher's been impossible since the girl was born. Doctors come and go, but his temper only gets worse." That first week, Maggie focused on her assigned duties. She cleaned the massive house from top to bottom, polished silver, and scrubbed floors. But her ears stayed alert to the sounds from Emmy's room upstairs. She heard the child talking to herself, creating imaginary friends to fill the lonely hours. During her second week, Maggie was dusting the upstairs hallway when Emmy's door creaked open. The little girl stepped out cautiously, her small hands trailing along the wall for guidance. "Who's there?" Emmy asked softly. Maggie paused her work. "Just the cleaning lady, child." Emmy moved closer. Her unseeing eyes turned toward Maggie's voice. "You sound different from Mrs. Patterson. Are you new?" "Yes, I am. My name is Maggie." Something in Maggie's gentle tone made Emmy smile for the first time in weeks. The child had grown accustomed to whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. Everyone spoke about her as if she couldn't understand her own fate. "Papa says I'm not supposed to talk to the help," Emmy said, but she didn't move away. "Then maybe we shouldn't tell him," Maggie replied with warmth in her voice. Over the following days, their brief encounters became a bright spot in Emmy's isolated world. Maggie would hum old spirituals while she worked, and Emmy would creep out of her room to listen. The melodies seemed to bring light to Emmy's dark world. During these conversations, Emmy revealed something that made Maggie's breath catch. "Sometimes I see things that aren't there," the child whispered, "light shadows that move around. But the doctors say that's impossible." Maggie's grandmother had told her about children like this. Rare souls born with inner sight that others couldn't understand. The doctors dismissed what they couldn't explain, but Maggie recognized the signs. One evening, Jacob caught them talking in the hallway. His face darkened with fury. "I gave you specific instructions," he barked at Maggie. "Emmy, go to your room immediately." Emmy retreated quickly, but not before Maggie saw something remarkable. The child had turned her head slightly, tracking movement that shouldn't have been visible to blind eyes. That night, the worst storm of the season struck the ranch. Thunder shook the house while rain lashed against the windows. Emmy huddled in her bed, terrified and alone. The darkness that was always with her seemed to press closer during storms. Her bedroom door opened softly. Footsteps crossed the floor. Emmy knew it wasn't her father. His boots were heavy and announced his presence. These steps moved with careful grace. "Don't be afraid, child," Maggie's voice whispered through the darkness. Lightning flashed outside, and Emmy began to tremble uncontrollably. Years of isolation and fear crashed over her like the storm itself. She had never seen her father's face, never watched a sunrise, never experienced the simple joy of sight that others took for granted. Maggie sat on the edge of the bed and opened her leather satchel. Inside were small glass bottles filled with herbs and oils that had been collected under specific moon phases. Her grandmother's remedies had never failed when applied with pure intention. "Trust me," Maggie whispered, removing a small jar of paste that glowed faintly in the darkness. Emmy felt gentle fingers touch her temples as Maggie began to apply the ancient mixture around her eyes. The herbal paste felt warm against Emmy's skin as Maggie's weathered fingers worked with practiced precision. The mixture contained ingredients that had been ground by moonlight in the Louisiana bayous: sage for clarity, lavender for healing, and a rare root that Maggie's grandmother had called the eye opener. "Close your eyes and breathe slowly," Maggie whispered. Emmy obeyed, though closing eyes that had never seen made little difference. The paste tingled against her temples and eyelids. Something deep within her head began to shift and change. It felt like ice melting or flowers blooming after a long winter. Thunder crashed overhead, but Emmy's trembling stopped. A strange warmth spread through her entire body. Her grandmother's voice echoed in Maggie's memory as she continued the ancient ritual. "Some children are born with gifts that sleep until awakened," the old woman had explained decades ago. "The healing touch doesn't create what isn't there. It reveals what was always hidden." Maggie had learned these techniques as a young girl in Louisiana. Her grandmother, known throughout the bayou as Mother Celeste, could heal ailments that stumped trained physicians. She had taught Maggie that true healing required more than herbs and oils. It demanded absolute faith and pure intention. "The white doctors treat symptoms," Mother Celeste had said. "We heal the spirit first. When the spirit is whole, the body follows." Maggie had carried this knowledge for 30 years, waiting for someone who could receive it fully. She had helped others with minor ailments, but never encountered a child like Emmy, a soul born with dormant abilities that conventional medicine couldn't understand or unlock. The paste continued to work its ancient magic. Emmy's breathing deepened as something fundamental shifted behind her closed eyelids. Maggie felt the change like electricity in the air, the same sensation she remembered from childhood when her grandmother performed the most powerful healings. "Open your eyes, child." Emmy's eyelids fluttered open slowly. For the first time in 8 years, light flooded into her awareness, But this wasn't ordinary sight. The world exploded into colors and patterns that defied explanation. Maggie's face appeared surrounded by a golden glow that pulsed with warmth and kindness. The light seemed to emanate from within her, revealing the true nature of her generous heart. Emmy gasped and reached toward the radiant figure before her. "You're beautiful," Emmy whispered, seeing another person's face for the very first time. But the miracle extended far beyond normal vision. Emmy could see layers of light and energy that surrounded everything in the room. Her wooden dresser glowed with a soft brown aura. The storm outside appeared as swirling patterns of silver and gray. Even the darkness had texture and depth she had never imagined. Maggie's eyes filled with tears as she witnessed the awakening. This was the moment her grandmother had prepared her for, without either of them fully understanding when it would come. The ancient knowledge had found its purpose at last. "What am I seeing?" Emmy asked, her voice filled with wonder rather than fear. "You're seeing the truth that lives beneath the surface of things," Maggie explained gently. "Some people are born with this gift, but it takes special circumstances to awaken it." Emmy looked around the room with her new, extraordinary sight. Every object radiated its own unique energy signature. But when she concentrated on Maggie, the golden light grew brighter and more complex. She could see layers of emotion and intention that told stories without words. "The light around you feels happy and sad at the same time," Emmy observed. Maggie nodded. "I'm happy because you can finally see. Sad because I know how hard your life has been without sight." This was beyond anything Maggie had expected. Her grandmother had told stories of rare individuals who gained not just physical vision, but spiritual sight that revealed the true nature of people and things. Emmy possessed both gifts in abundance. "Can you see other things too?" Maggie asked carefully. Emmy turned toward her bedroom door. Through the wood, she could perceive her father pacing in his study below. Jacob was surrounded by swirling gray and gold light that shifted constantly. The gray represented his frustration and pride, while the gold showed his deep love for her buried beneath layers of disappointment. "Papa is downstairs," Emmy said. "His light is all mixed up, gold and gray dancing together." Maggie felt her breath catch. The child could see through walls and perceive emotional states. This was a level of awakened sight that occurred perhaps once in a generation. The responsibility suddenly felt overwhelming. "We must be very careful about this gift," Maggie warned. "Not everyone will understand or accept what you can do." Emmy nodded solemnly. Even at 8 years old, she understood that her new abilities would be seen as impossible by most people. The doctors had declared her condition permanent. Her father had spent fortunes seeking cures that never came. Now she possessed sight that surpassed anything they could imagine. "Will you teach me how to use it properly?" Emmy asked. "Yes, child, but we must keep this secret between us for now." Maggie opened her leather satchel and removed a small journal with blank pages. She would document every detail of Emmy's progress and abilities. Her grandmother had always kept careful records of the most significant healings. "Your father cannot know yet," Maggie continued. "People fear what they don't understand. We need time to help you learn control." Emmy experimented with her new sight, looking at familiar objects that now revealed hidden depths and energies. Her dollhouse glowed with memories of happy moments. Her favorite blanket radiated comfort and security. Everything in her world had gained meaning and beauty she never could have imagined. The storm began to subside outside, but inside Emmy's bedroom, a new chapter was beginning. The impossible had occurred through ancient wisdom that predated modern medicine by centuries. Maggie carefully cleaned the remaining paste from Emmy's face and packed away her healing supplies. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as they worked to keep this miracle secret while helping Emmy master her extraordinary gift. 3 weeks passed as Emmy's extraordinary abilities grew stronger each day. Her aura sight revealed details about people that astounded even Maggie. The ranch hands appeared in different colored lights that matched their personalities perfectly. Honest workers glowed with steady blue or green auras. The lazy ones showed muddy brown energy. But 3 men carried something far more sinister. Tom Bradley, Chuck Morrison, and Pete Williams radiated darkness that made Emmy's stomach turn. Their auras writhed like black smoke mixed with deep red anger. During her secret lessons with Maggie, Emmy learned to interpret these warning signs. "When you see that kind of darkness, stay away," Maggie instructed, as they sat in the hidden alcove beneath the main staircase. "Those men carry dangerous intentions." Emmy nodded and carefully practiced moving through the house without revealing her newfound sight. She had mastered the art of appearing to navigate by touch and sound while actually using her visual abilities. Her father remained completely unaware of the miracle that had occurred under his own roof. Jacob noticed changes in his daughter's behavior, but attributed them to natural development. Emmy moved with more confidence. She anticipated people's movements. She seemed to know things she shouldn't be able to know. But he dismissed these observations as wishful thinking. Marshal Hal Stark proved more observant than Jacob. During his weekly visits to the ranch, he watched Emmy carefully. Something about the girl's reactions didn't match her supposed blindness. She turned toward sounds before they occurred. She reached for objects with too much precision. Her unseeing eyes seemed to track movement across rooms. "Interesting how much Emmy has improved lately," Marshal Stark commented to Jacob during one visit. "Children adapt as they grow older," Jacob replied curtly. "She's learning to cope with her condition." But Marshal Stark's suspicions continued to grow. He began asking subtle questions around town about the new housekeeper. Several people mentioned Maggie's unusual knowledge of herbs and healing remedies. The local medicine man confirmed she had purchased rare plants known for their medicinal properties. Meanwhile, Emmy's abilities expanded beyond simple aura reading. She discovered she could perceive emotions and intentions through the colored lights surrounding people. When her father felt frustrated, gray smoke billowed around him. When Mrs. Patterson felt happy while baking, golden sparkles danced in her aura. Most remarkably, Emmy began seeing glimpses of people's plans and desires reflected in their energy fields. This ability proved invaluable when she overheard the 3 dark aura ranch hands plotting in the barn late one evening. "We take the cattle from the north pasture tomorrow night," Tom Bradley whispered to his companions. "Boss will never miss them until morning." Emmy watched from her bedroom window as their auras pulsed with greedy red light and deceptive black swirls. She could see their intentions as clearly as if they had written them down. They planned to steal 50 head of cattle and burn part of the barn to cover their tracks. The next day brought unexpected crisis when Dr. Hayes returned for his promised follow-up examination. Jacob had summoned him despite the previous hopeless diagnosis. Hope and desperation warred in Jacob's conflicted aura as he led the Boston specialist to Emmy's room. "Nothing has changed since my last visit," Dr. Hayes declared, after examining Emmy's eyes with various instruments. "The child remains completely blind. There is no medical treatment that can alter this condition." Jacob's aura flared with bitter disappointment and renewed anger. Emmy sat quietly during the examination, careful not to reveal any sign of her restored vision. She watched Dr. Hayes through her extraordinary sight and saw arrogance mixed with genuine medical knowledge in his green and silver aura. That evening, the cattle theft unfolded exactly as Emmy had foreseen. Tom Bradley and his accomplices drove 50 head of prime cattle from the north pasture under cover of darkness. They set fire to the hay storage section of the barn before escaping toward the county line. The alarm bells rang at midnight. Ranch hands rushed to fight the fire while Jacob surveyed the damage with Marshal Stark. The missing cattle were discovered at dawn, and Jacob's rage reached dangerous levels. "Someone on this ranch is a thief and a saboteur," Jacob shouted at the assembled workers. "I want answers, and I want them now." His aura burned with red fury and black suspicion. Emmy watched from the house as her father began accusing innocent men. His judgment was clouded by anger and his inability to see the truth that was obvious to her enhanced sight. "You've been acting suspicious lately," Jacob pointed at Carlos Mendez, one of his most loyal workers. "Maybe you thought you deserved a bonus." Carlos's aura showed only blue honesty and yellow confusion. Emmy could see he was completely innocent, but her father was blind to the truth. Jacob's accusations grew more wild and unfair as his frustration mounted. "I think that new housekeeper might be involved too," Jacob continued. "Strange things started happening after she arrived." Emmy's heart raced as she realized her father was about to destroy innocent lives because he couldn't see what she saw so clearly. Maggie stood quietly near the kitchen door, her golden aura steady despite the unjust suspicions being directed at her. Marshal Stark watched the scene with calculating eyes. His aura showed intense curiosity, mixed with growing certainty about something he had been investigating. Emmy could see he suspected the truth about her abilities, but wasn't sure how to prove it. The real thieves stood among the crowd of ranch hands, their dark auras writhing with guilty knowledge and fear of discovery. But Jacob was looking in all the wrong directions. His pride and prejudice blinded him to the obvious truth that Emmy could see with perfect clarity. "I want everyone questioned individually," Jacob commanded. "Someone will tell me who's responsible for this theft." Emmy realized she faced an impossible choice. She could remain silent and watch innocent people suffer for crimes they didn't commit. Or she could reveal her miraculous sight and extraordinary abilities to save them from her father's misguided justice. The moment of decision had arrived. Emmy stepped out of the house onto the front porch where the crowd of ranch hands stood accused. Her small figure drew immediate attention as she moved with confident steps that should have been impossible for a blind child. Jacob's angry tirade stopped mid-sentence. "Emmy, go back inside," Jacob commanded, his aura flaring with protective concern mixed with embarrassment. "No, Papa," Emmy said firmly. "I need to tell you something important." Every person in the crowd turned toward the little girl who had never been able to see their faces. Marshal Stark's aura pulsed with intense anticipation. He had been waiting for this moment, suspecting something extraordinary was happening at the Thatcher Ranch. "I can see," Emmy announced simply. The silence that followed was deafening. 50 ranch hands stared at the child they had always pitied. Jacob's face went white with shock. His aura exploded into chaotic swirls of disbelief, hope, and confusion. "That's impossible," Dr. Hayes sputtered from where he stood near his carriage. "I examined her yesterday. The child is completely blind." Emmy turned directly toward the Boston specialist. Her clear gaze met his eyes with perfect accuracy. "You're wearing a blue coat with silver buttons. Your medical bag is brown leather with brass buckles. There's a small stain on your left sleeve." Dr. Hayes looked down at his coat in amazement. Every detail was exactly correct. The crowd murmured with growing excitement as they witnessed something that defied medical explanation. "But I can see more than just what things look like," Emmy continued, her young voice carrying across the stunned assembly. "I can see the truth about people." She pointed directly at Tom Bradley, who had been standing confidently among the accused workers. "You have darkness all around you, black smoke mixed with red guilt. You stole Papa's cattle." Tom's face flushed with panic. His aura writhed with the dark energy Emmy had learned to recognize as deception and evil intent. "The kid's making it up. She's been blind her whole life." "Chuck Morrison and Pete Williams helped you," Emmy continued without hesitation. "I can see their guilt too. It looks like black tar mixed with red fire." The two other men began backing away from the crowd. Their auras betrayed their terror at being identified by seemingly impossible means. Marshal Stark moved to block their escape route, his hand resting on his gun belt. "You planned to burn the barn to cover your tracks," Emmy said, her extraordinary sight revealing details she shouldn't have been able to know. "But you only wanted to damage the hay storage, not burn down the whole building." Tom Bradley's composure cracked completely. "How could she possibly know that? We never told anyone." "Because I can see the truth in the lights around people," Emmy explained patiently. "Bad people have dark auras. Good people glow with bright colors." She turned toward Carlos Mendez, who had been wrongly accused. "Carlos has blue light around him. That means he's honest and loyal. He would never steal from Papa." Carlos's eyes filled with tears of relief as his innocence was publicly declared. His wife Rosa rushed to embrace him, her own aura blazing with grateful golden light. Emmy then looked at Maggie, who stood quietly near the kitchen entrance. Maggie glows brighter than anyone I've ever seen. Pure gold light that shows her kind heart. She's the one who helped me see again. The crowd's attention shifted to the black housekeeper, who had been dismissed and ignored since her arrival. Maggie stepped forward with dignified grace, her hands clasped calmly in front of her. "How is this possible?" Jacob asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "My grandmother taught me the old ways of healing," Maggie replied simply. "Some children are born with gifts that need awakening. Emmy was one of those special souls." Dr. Hayes approached Emmy with scientific curiosity, overriding his shock. "Can you really see auras around people? What do you see when you look at me?" Emmy studied the doctor carefully. "Green and silver lights. The green shows you really want to help people. The silver means you're very smart. But there's some gray mixed in because you're proud and don't like being wrong." Dr. Hayes stepped back in amazement. The child had described his personality with startling accuracy. His entire understanding of medicine and human capability was crumbling before his eyes. Word of the miracle spread across the county faster than wildfire. By evening, reporters from the Dallas Morning News and San Antonio Express had arrived at the ranch. Photographers set up their equipment to document the impossible story of the blind girl who could now see beyond normal human perception. "Tell our readers exactly what happened," demanded James Morrison, the lead reporter from Dallas. Emmy recounted the story simply and honestly. She described Maggie's healing touch, the ancient herbal remedy, and the awakening of her extraordinary sight. She gave full credit to the woman who had risked everything to help her. Jacob listened in stunned silence as his daughter praised the housekeeper he had dismissed as unimportant. His own prejudices and pride had blinded him to the miracle occurring in his own home. Shame mixed with gratitude in his confused aura. The reporters interviewed Maggie extensively about her healing methods and family history. She spoke with quiet dignity about her grandmother's teachings and the ancient wisdom passed down through generations. "Why didn't you tell Mr. Thatcher what you were doing?" one reporter asked. "He forbade me from helping his daughter," Maggie replied truthfully. "But some things are more important than following orders." The story appeared in newspapers across Texas within days. Emmy became known as the miracle girl of the Texas Plains. Maggie's reputation as a healer spread throughout the territory, bringing visitors from hundreds of miles away seeking help for their own ailments. But the attention also brought unwanted scrutiny to Jacob's business practices and personal life. The newspaper attention brought more than fame to the Thatcher Ranch. Financial investigators from the territorial government arrived within a week, drawn by inconsistencies in Jacob's story about expensive medical treatments. Their ledgers told a different tale than the one Jacob had been spinning. "According to our records, you've withdrawn over $15,000 for medical expenses in the past 2 years, stated Samuel Harrison, the chief investigator. But several of the doctors you claim to have paid have no record of receiving such amounts." Jacob's aura churned with dark gray panic as the investigation deepened. Emmy watched from the parlor window as her father's empire began crumbling. The man who had built everything through determination and hard work was losing it all through pride and deception. The truth emerged piece by piece. Jacob had been skimming money from ranch operations, inflating medical expenses, and keeping the difference for himself. His desperation to cure Emmy had driven him to increasingly dishonest practices. The very wealth he was so proud of had been built on lies. "Papa's light is almost all gray now," Emmy told Maggie as they watched Jacob pace frantically in his study. "The gold is still there, but it's getting smaller every day." Meanwhile, Maggie found herself thrust into a role she had never expected. Visitors arrived daily seeking healing for their ailments. Families traveled from across Texas hoping she could work miracles for their sick children. Her quiet dignity and genuine compassion impressed everyone who met her. Dr. Hayes returned to study Maggie's methods with scientific curiosity. His initial arrogance had been replaced by humble desire to learn. "I've spent 20 years studying medicine," he admitted to Maggie. "But you've accomplished something I thought was impossible." "My grandmother always said healing comes from the heart first," Maggie replied as she organized her herbs. The plants and remedies are just tools. The real power comes from caring about people. The territorial governor sent an official delegation to investigate the healing claims. They interviewed dozens of people who credited Maggie with curing everything from chronic pain to mysterious fevers. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Emmy's abilities continued to develop as she learned to use her gift responsibly. She could identify sick animals by their dimmed auras, helping the ranch veterinarian treat problems before they became serious. Her talent for reading people's true intentions proved invaluable in daily life. But the weight of seeing everyone's deepest truths took its toll on the young girl. She witnessed the fear and resentment some people felt toward her extraordinary abilities. Their auras revealed suspicions about witchcraft and unnatural powers that frightened those who couldn't understand. "Some folks think you're touched by the devil," Marshal Stark warned during one of his visits. "There's been talk in town about investigating you and Maggie for practicing dark arts." Jacob's downfall accelerated when his creditors discovered the financial irregularities. The bank demanded immediate repayment of loans he couldn't cover. His cattle empire faced foreclosure proceedings that would strip away everything he had built. "I'm losing the ranch," Jacob confessed to Emmy one evening, his aura heavy with shame and defeat. "Everything I worked for is gone." Emmy studied her father's tortured expression with her enhanced sight, beneath the gray clouds of guilt and pride. She could still see the golden core of his love for her. That love had driven him to desperate measures, but it remained pure and strong. The community's reaction to recent events divided along predictable lines. Progressive voices celebrated Maggie's healing gift and Emmy's miraculous recovery. Conservative elements whispered about dangerous influences and unnatural occurrences that threatened the established order. The Territorial Medical Board wants to investigate Maggie's practices, Dr. Hayes informed Jacob during his final visit to the ranch. They're calling it unlicensed medical practice. But public opinion was shifting in Maggie's favor. Families whose loved ones had been helped by her treatments organized petitions supporting her right to continue healing. Newspapers across the Southwest ran editorials praising her contributions to frontier medicine. The governor's investigation concluded with an unprecedented recommendation. Rather than prosecuting Maggie for practicing medicine without a license, they proposed establishing an official healing center where she could work alongside trained doctors. "The territorial government is prepared to fund a medical facility that combines traditional healing methods with modern practices," announced the governor's representative. Mrs. Green would serve as head of traditional medicine. Jacob watched these developments with growing awareness of his own failures. His daughter had been healed not by his expensive doctors or desperate schemes, but by the kindness of a woman he had dismissed as unimportant. His pride had blinded him to the miracle happening in his own home. The foreclosure proceedings moved forward relentlessly. Jacob would lose the ranch, his cattle, and his position as one of the county's most powerful men. But something unexpected was happening to his relationship with Emmy. "I can see your love more clearly now, Papa," Emmy told him as they sat together on the porch at sunset. "The gray clouds are clearing away from the gold light." Jacob realized that losing his wealth might be the key to finding his daughter. For 8 years, his obsession with curing her blindness had prevented him from simply enjoying her company. Now that she could see both his face and his heart, their relationship was beginning to heal. "I've been a proud fool," Jacob admitted, his aura shifting toward clearer, brighter colors. "Maggie gave you something I never could." The day of the ranch auction arrived with dozens of buyers competing for Jacob's former empire. He stood quietly among the crowd, no longer the commanding presence he had once been. His transformation from wealthy rancher to humble man was nearly complete. 6 months after the ranch auction, the Thatcher Healing Center opened its doors in the heart of town. The modest 2-story building housed both traditional healing rooms and modern medical facilities. Maggie's name appeared on the sign alongside Dr. Hayes, who had requested to work with her as an equal partner. Emmy walked through the center's main hallway with confident steps, her extraordinary sight guiding her toward patients who needed the most help. Her aura-reading abilities had become legendary throughout the territory. Families traveled hundreds of miles hoping she could identify illnesses that conventional doctors missed. "The lady in room 3 has sadness covering her like a gray blanket," Emmy reported to Maggie. "But underneath, there's sickness in her chest that glows dark red." Maggie nodded and gathered the appropriate herbs for treating both the physical ailment and the emotional pain. Her reputation had spread far beyond Texas, bringing visitors from as far away as California and New Mexico. The territorial government's official endorsement had silenced most critics of her unorthodox methods. Jacob worked quietly in the center's garden, tending the medicinal plants that Maggie used in her remedies. The former cattle baron had found peace in simple physical labor. His aura had transformed from the chaotic swirls of pride and desperation into steady blue contentment mixed with golden love. "Papa's light is beautiful now," Emmy had told Maggie just that morning, "clean and bright like morning sunshine." The transformation had not been easy for Jacob. Losing his wealth and status had forced him to confront every assumption he had held about worth and value. But watching Emmy thrive in her new role as a healer had taught him lessons that money could never buy. Dr. Hayes emerged from the consultation room where he had been working with a patient Maggie had treated the previous week. The collaboration between traditional and modern medicine was producing remarkable results that neither approach could achieve alone. "The tuberculosis patient is completely recovered," Dr. Hayes announced with amazement. That still surprised him, after months of witnessing Maggie's successes. Her lungs are clear for the first time in 2 years. Emmy's special abilities had proven invaluable in diagnosing conditions that stumped conventional medicine. She could see illness as dark patches or distorted colors in people's auras. Her gift guided the healers toward treatments that might otherwise have been overlooked. Marshal Stark brought a steady stream of cases to the center. His initial skepticism had evolved into complete faith in Emmy and Maggie's abilities. He regularly consulted Emmy when investigating crimes, as her talent for reading people's true intentions helped identify honest witnesses from deceptive ones. "Got a missing child case from 3 counties over," Marshal Stark explained to Emmy during his weekly visit. "Parents think someone in their town knows what happened but won't talk." Emmy studied the photographs of potential witnesses that Marshal Stark had collected. Even through the images, she could perceive hints of the subject's auras and emotional states. Her insights had helped solve dozens of cases across the territory. The success of the healing center had transformed the entire community. The town that once whispered cruel gossip about the cursed Thatcher girl now celebrated Emmy as a blessed child with miraculous gifts. Visitors brought money and attention that boosted local businesses and created new opportunities. Mrs. Patterson, the former ranch cook, now managed the center's kitchen and dining facilities. She prepared special meals for patients following Maggie's nutritional recommendations. Carlos Mendez oversaw the medicinal garden that Jacob tended with such dedication. "Never seen plants grow like they do under Mr. Jacob's care," Carlos observed while harvesting lavender for Maggie's treatments. "Man's got a gift for making things flourish." The irony was not lost on Emmy. Her father, who had spent years trying to fix her with money and pride, had discovered his true talents only after losing everything. His gentle touch with plants rivaled Maggie's skills with healing herbs. Dr. Hayes had documented hundreds of successful treatments at the center. His detailed case studies were being published in medical journals across the country. The integration of traditional healing with modern medicine was attracting attention from universities and medical schools. "We're changing how people think about healing," Dr. Hayes told a visiting professor from Harvard Medical School. The combination of approaches produces results that neither method achieves independently. Emmy continued to grow into her extraordinary gifts while maintaining the innocence and wisdom that made her so effective as a healer. She could now perceive multiple layers of information through her enhanced sight. Physical ailments, emotional states, and spiritual conditions all revealed themselves through the complex patterns of light and color she observed. Young people from across the territory came to study with Maggie, hoping to learn traditional healing methods that had been passed down through generations. She carefully selected students who possessed both the knowledge and the character necessary for such responsibility. "Healing is about serving others," Maggie taught her apprentices. "The moment you use these gifts for personal gain or glory, you lose the ability to truly help people." Jacob often listened to these lessons while working in the garden. The man who had once demanded recognition for his wealth and power now understood that true greatness came through humble service to others. As evening approached, Emmy walked through the center's halls one final time, checking on patients and staff. Her extraordinary sight revealed the satisfaction and hope that filled the building. Golden light surrounded the recovering patients. Bright blue contentment emanated from the healers who had found their calling. Outside, the Texas sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors that Emmy could now appreciate with both normal vision and her enhanced perceptions. She had gained far more than sight during that thunderstorm 6 months ago. She had discovered her purpose. Her family had found redemption, and an entire community had learned that miracles often came disguised as ordinary people willing to serve others with extraordinary love.